not good morning, but good afternoon. Welcome back to KXAN Live. I'm your anchor, Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our Nick's First Warning Weather segment with meteorologist Nick Bannin. Nick, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Hey, good to be here. I know we typically talk about looking much further ahead during these Tuesday segments, but today everyone's talking about the cold that is mere hours, and in some places it's already here. So we'll be talking about that first, and then we'll eventually talk about the impact of La Niña on our spring weather.
Yeah, so this morning was somewhat dry, and now after I came back from lunch, it seems to be very rainy in Austin. I have a blanket on my lap right now because I'm already feeling the cold. What can you tell us about what's happening this evening?
You're feeling the cold before really it's even here.
I know.
At least for most of us. It's almost 60 outside. It's not that cold just yet. But hey, whatever makes you feel better, blanket, no one has to know. Although I think you just told everybody. Let's talk about what's happening outside now, because for most of us, it's some areas of drizzle, sprinkles, a lot of clouds, some patches of fog, as temperatures are not yet dropping for most of us here in Central Texas. What we've got outside right now is we pop up those maps, and you can see those very light returns on radar. Those are the sprinkles, light, very light showers in some areas of drizzle as well. Let's talk about that cold front, though, that is already arriving in the hill country. San Saba has dropped significantly, and this colder air is knocking on our doorstep. Esme, look at that temperature difference from Amarillo to Brownsville, from 8 degrees in Amarillo to Brownsville in the 80s. Impressive stuff, and we're right now in the middle of it, where we're at 59, almost 60 in Austin. Some areas southeast of Austin, by the way, are in the low 60s already. So the warmth is there for some of us, but then look at San Saba, already down to 38. Lampasas at 40. That cold front is almost, it's continuing to work its way through parts of the hill country right now, and you almost don't need us to draw it on the map because it's very easy to see. But the front itself is basically just north of Burnett and entering Llano and Mason counties. Fredericksburg almost at 70 right now. That would feel great, but not for much longer. 60s in Marble Falls, 50s in Austin and Georgetown, still 61 in Cameron. So easy to see where that front is. We think it'll be in the Austin metro between about 4:30 and 6. So Williamson County, closer to 4:30, 5 o'clock, between 5 and 6 in Austin, and a little after that for Hayes County, and then moving into our eastern counties. So not far away, and the winds are a good telltale sign of where the front has arrived. Llano, Mason, and San Saba seeing those wind gusts near 20 miles per hour or higher. And those gustier winds are going to be blowing in with the arrival of the front. So as soon as you start to feel those winds pick up into the early evening, then you'll know that the front has arrived where you are and that temperatures will be dropping very quickly thereafter. So here's the arrival time of those gusty winds, which is basically showing you also the arrival time of the cold front. And you can see there gusting 20 to 35 miles per hour through 5 p.m. with that front thereabouts, just abouts in Austin at that point. And then those gustier winds shifting into our eastern counties. Could see some gusts up around 40 miles per hour at times here this evening and nighttime. Those winds will be howling, and as a result, they will be dropping the temperatures rather rapidly. I wouldn't be surprised if we go from near 60 into the 40s in just about an hour time between the 60 and the 40 degree readings here as we head into this evening. So temperatures will drop quickly, and it will stay blustery through the overnight hours into tomorrow morning, gusting 20 to 30 miles per hour for most of us then. And we'll talk about the wind chills here in a second, but this is not going to be a warm wind by any stretch. This is a wind out of the north, just dropping our temperatures quickly through the night and making it feel so unpleasantly cold, if not dangerously cold, at times here tomorrow. Those wind gusts will back off just slightly during the afternoon and evening tomorrow, but still breezy enough to add a wind chill, and it will still be breezy into Thursday. So just speaking of the winds alone, we do have a wind advisory for Travis, Blanco, Hayes, Bastrop, Caldwell, and Fayette counties around midnight tonight through noon Wednesday. Those wind gusts up to 35 or 40 miles per hour. And we could get power outages, albeit isolated ones, just from the wind alone here this evening and overnight. Those would be the localized variety, not the grid variety, but you could still have the power go out for you tonight because of these gusty winds, especially if they're impacting trees that have weakened branches, that sort of thing, and then those branches fall on a power line. You could get those localized power outages here tonight. Should we talk temperatures, Esme?
Yes, although I'm not ready for these temperatures, but we can talk about it.
All right, well, look how those numbers fall. By 7 o'clock, we'll go from the 60s to the 40s in Austin, middle and low 30s in the Hill Country. Still reasonably warm in our eastern counties, but those numbers falling quickly as well. And I wouldn't even call that warm. 50s in LaGrange and Flatonia is not exactly warm at that point. And then the cold is everywhere, so that by midnight or later, by midnight or earlier, we're below freezing from 35 westward. And then soon after midnight, we're below freezing in our eastern counties. Now, for those of you picking up on the moisture here today, the drizzle, the rain, you may be worried about wintry precipitation here tonight. Now, I'm not saying that there will be no ice, but we think that the air will have dried out enough during the times that temperatures drop below freezing that there shouldn't be much moisture left. So a very limited but not non-existent icing concern here tonight, and that's likely why you've seen the brine on the road that local crews have been putting on some of our elevated surfaces on the off chance that there's still some leftover standing water that hasn't dried up before those temperatures drop below freezing. We'll keep seeing these numbers falling down. By 7 tomorrow morning, we're in the mid-20s in Austin. These are just regular air temperatures, by the way. And then teens in the Hill Country at 7 in the morning to begin your day tomorrow. And then even with some afternoon sun, it doesn't warm up much. Parts of the Hill Country don't climb above freezing tomorrow. Lampasas 32, San Saba barely above at 33. We're thinking about 37 or so in Austin. So it's, for those warmer spots, we're only briefly above freezing. And then for the colder spots, you may not get above freezing here tomorrow. Now, these numbers are dependent on us getting some afternoon sunshine. Well, that map got away from me there. If we don't get any afternoon sunshine, you could cut another 4 to 6 degrees off of these temperatures, but we think we'll get a little bit. And then as we head into the early morning hours of Thursday morning, at this point, then we're looking for temperatures to drop even more, low 20s and upper teens. So Thursday morning is colder than tomorrow morning. And again, this is not yet factoring in the wind chill. Thursday afternoon, sunny just about all day, should get us into the upper 30s in most areas. Thursday afternoon should be warmer than Wednesday afternoon, even some low 40s in spots. And then we'll drop back down to near freezing or so Friday morning. So now what about wind chill? So factoring in those gusts, 20 to 40 miles per hour, how is it actually going to feel? And remember, the wind chill is a calculated temperature that how it feels on exposed skin. This because the wind helps to wick away your body's heat. So if you have any skin exposed, this wind is actually making it feel colder than it is because the wind is actually taking away your body heat as well as you feeling the regular air temperature. That's why it feels colder than the regular air temperature. So here, this evening by 8, it's feeling like it's below freezing in most places already.
Wow.
And then tomorrow morning, feeling like the teens and single digits. These would be the lowest wind chill numbers of the season, despite us having some colder nights than this. Those colder nights that we've had so far this season have not had the type of wind that we're talking about tonight. So feeling like the teens on exposed skin tomorrow morning, if not single digits. That's why we always say cover up as much exposed skin as you can. That takes away the wind chill element and then just leaves you trying to stay warm with your body heat plus all the layers that you add up. So this will be important for kids going to school tomorrow, and of course us adults trying to stay warm, and anybody that works outside will need to pay attention to the wind chill too. Then we head through the day tomorrow, and it likely does not feel like it climbs above freezing at all. Even if the air temperature does, the wind chill likely in most places does not. So it feels like the 20s to near 30 at best tomorrow afternoon. And then as we get into tomorrow evening and Thursday morning, those wind chills potentially on the cold side below 15 again, with some single digit wind chills too. And then as we head through Thursday afternoon, a little less wind, and it may start to feel like it's above freezing. So there's a lot going on here, I know, but at least we're not overly concerned with wintry precipitation for the time being, because that rain is clearing out just ahead of the cold, and then it gives us a few hours of drying before we drop below freezing. But if there's some areas where drainage has been happening, poor drainage, let's say those downspouts collect in a certain area that's not as exposed to the wind, there could be some leftover puddles, and if there are, those could freeze overnight. So there'll probably be some icy spots tomorrow. My cautious hope, though, is that those icy spots are not on roads. I think there'll be some shaded areas, perhaps, that have some slipperiness overnight into the morning. Tomorrow starts with a lot of clouds. It may take some time, but it looks like we'll get a few breaks of sun tomorrow afternoon. And then tomorrow night, clear skies, still windy, still cold, and Thursday at least sunny all day long. And then we'll start talking about more clouds on the way here for Friday. So to sum up just the next 3 days, we've got our cold front coming in this evening. Highs of just 37 tomorrow with some afternoon sun. Much more sun on Thursday, but only up to 39. And then the clouds fill in for Friday, and a high of just 38 and a low 20% chance of rain on Friday. We'll have to watch Friday closer, just in case there's some spotty icing, wintry precipitation then too. Right now it does look like a mostly dry day until, say, later in the day as we start to climb up. But that'll be something to watch going into the future. So because the hill country tonight into tomorrow morning will have the coldest lows and the coldest wind chills, that's where the extreme cold warnings are for tonight through tomorrow at noon. And then for the majority of or all of the metro and the majority of our eastern counties, we've got cold weather advisories for midnight tonight through noon tomorrow. Cold weather advisory versus extreme cold warning, just a different degree of cold. The extreme cold warnings has those even colder wind chills down near zero. The wind chills in the cold weather advisory is just not quite as brutal, but still very, very cold. And then extreme cold warnings from late tomorrow night through Thursday morning for that even colder start to the day. So that wraps up my little TED Talk about the cold, Esme. It's going to be everywhere. We're all going to feel it. We're all going to feel the wind. We'll all feel the cold temperatures. Hopefully very few of us feel any icy spots. But it's the type of cold that we've had some degrees of this winter already. I don't think we've had these types of wind chills this winter, but we have had some of those overnight lows that cold. Don't forget about the 4 Ps, of course. People, pets, plants, and pipes. Starting this evening, we want to remember those. And then again tomorrow evening into Thursday morning. And then we'll start to slowly climb out of this cold as we head through the day on Friday. And by the way, we've got temperatures into next week almost at 80. So the end is in sight, but we do want to take this seriously.
Yeah, there is an article on our website, kxan.com, where we provided details that Governor Abbott announced when he had his press conference on the big freeze that is happening this week. Mm-hmm. There's also resources in there for anyone who wants to check road conditions or see who they can call when their localized power outages happen, like you mentioned. So all of that is on our website, kxan.com.
Great.
And we did speak earlier about how winter is not over yet. No. And this is just a great example of that.
Yeah, I mean, this might be winter's last gasp. We're not seeing this type of cold coming back. Mm-hmm. Obviously, meteorological winter here just less than 2 weeks away. And then we'll be into spring March 1st. You can get wintry weather into March, of course. Mm-hmm. We're not seeing signs of that just now. So get through the next 3-4 days and we may be in the clear as far as wintry weather goes. Although not said with a huge degree of certainty, but based on what we're seeing so far, this looks like it for winter cold. And then we can start looking ahead to spring.
Yeah, it's important to get your houses prepared, get your people, your pets, your plants, everything, your pipes prepared for tonight's weather. Yeah. But we are also talking about La Niña. You have a few updates on La Niña and how this may possibly be coming to an end?
Yes, so La Niña only began in December, if you remember. Mm-hmm. La Niña is the cold phase of ENSO, known as the El Niño Southern Oscillation, and you enter La Niña when the water temperatures in a certain area of the Pacific Ocean are colder than normal by at least 0.5 degree centigrade or colder. And we've been like that since December. It was finally announced in January that we were in a La Nina, but it was always expected to be a short and relatively low-grade version of a La Nina, and we're already seeing the end in sight for La Nina. We got an update last Thursday from the Climate Prediction Center with NOAA about the timeline for when La Nina should end and when we should enter more of a neutral pattern. And here's what that timeline looks like. These blue bars indicate the chances of La Nina still going on. And at the bottom of those bars, you can see those three letters basically showing you 3-month increments rolling. So JFM, January, February, March, FMA, February, March, April, MAM is March, April, May. So it shifts by a month, but it gives you that idea with not a ton of specifics, but just during that 3-month period when we expect to be in whatever phase of ENSO. So FMA, February, March, April, still expecting to be in La Nina. The odds of that at that point, roughly 60% or so. Then we enter MAM, March, April, May, and then the odds of a neutral pattern start to outweigh the odds of anything else. The odds of being in neutral during March, April, May, which is our meteorological spring, are at roughly 66%, which does give the obvious that there is a blue bar there that is 34% odds of La Nina still continuing into spring. And just for completeness, you can see those red bars indicating the chances of El Nino, which is the warm phase. We're not talking about that until next year at the very earliest, or next winter at the very earliest. The odds of that on the way things look for now are fairly low. Mm-hmm. But going back to what our odds are of La Nina this spring. So let me just bring it back. So the odds of neutral, again, 66%. The odds of La Nina this spring, 34%. Why is that important? Well, if we had La Nina still this spring, then our odds of hailstorms and tornadoes goes up. And you can see there the National Weather Service have done some digging on what La Nina springs look like. That's on the right-hand side. And what El Nino springs look like. That's on the left-hand side. So we're not concerned with El Nino springs at this point. But La Nina springs do typically bring more instances of severe weather in the form of tornadoes and hail. So if our La Nina is over or very, very weak going into spring, then we wouldn't have to worry about tornadoes and hail as much. Now, there's always going to be some concern for that every spring here in Central Texas. But the frequency of them may not be as high as a typical La Nina spring if La Nina ends or is super weak. You can see, by the way, tornadoes is the top, mm-hmm. and then hailstorms is the bottom. Wow. But you can see the darker the purples here, indicating that the odds of hailstorms go way up during La Nina springs, and the odds of tornadoes go up a little bit, especially and including here in Central Texas. So there's the connection there. La Nina usually is something that we talk about for the winter, and the bigger winter impacts, the warmer and drier weather that we typically see, although, of course, not the entire winter. But there are some concerns with spring weather as well during La Nina springs. If that continues into spring, then we could be looking at more severe weather into March, April, May. That's a big if, of course. We could already be done with La Nina by then, and then we would expect sort of more of a typical spring. Mm-hmm. But certainly the odds are at least a possibility that we'll still be in La Nina in the spring, and that would increase our chances for more frequency of hailstorms or tornadoes. Now, the study didn't say that those tornadoes would be stronger, longer lasting, or that those hailstorms would contain bigger hail, just more the frequency of them would be something to watch here this spring.
Oh, well, that is a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I know. We hit you with a 1-2 punch here today.
Mm-hmm. So what can you tell us or tell the viewers who maybe just joined about what they can expect tonight? I know that's what a lot of people are looking for.
Yeah, so if you just joined, you're welcome to rewind to the beginning of our discussion if you'd like. But the bottom line is this Arctic cold front arrives in the early evening. It's already in the hill country now, but it arrives, and you can actually see it's in the hill country now because San Saba and Lampasas have already dropped into the 30s. Llano has been experiencing this front just since we've talked. Llano has dropped from the 50s to the 40s. Mm-hmm. So, and your temperatures will drop in the metro closer to about 5-ish. We'll see those numbers go from the 50s to the 40s pretty quick, and then 30s by mid-evening or so. So the Arctic front comes in. For the most part, there's not going to be a lot of precipitation left by the time it comes through. And we think that by the time the temperatures drop below freezing, that there won't be much, if any, precipitation left. But any standing water from the rain and drizzle that we've had today could freeze overnight.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Nick. I know you got to go. Thanks for being here and for sharing these details with us. Yeah,
and we'll be on KXAN News at 4, 5, 6, on CW at 9, and KXAN News at 10, tracking the rapid temperature drop here tonight and any additional concerns that we see.
Yes, and you can also visit our website, kxan.com, to watch any of our newscasts live or even jump into our weather blogs for more information.
You bet.
Thanks so much for watching.
Thanks.